Hey, welcome back to Spector Creative, and I'm doing kind of a follow-up video about X-Men the Animated Series, since the video I did about anticipating the new X-Men 97 release. I talked about some origins of characters in the, in the background, guest characters, not like, Banshee, who, we all know who that is, but, well, people asked for an expanded video, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about all of those background characters that showed up, and probably the most infamous one of them all, the one from the opening credits, and who and what this character is. So let's kind of dive in because, well, there's a lot more going on here. So it all starts with Eric and Julie Lewald, who were essentially the showrunners. It would be the appropriate term today for a TV show, the ones who kept things going. And it was because of them that we have to thank for all of the background characters and guest stars, especially being so comic accurate. And yes, for filling up just background space. Now, obviously, there's different types of guest stars. There's the ones that actually have a prominent role in the series as a whole. They're reoccurring. We know them. They come back in several episodes, and they wind up having a meaningful impression on the show itself. And then there's episodes or guest stars that are in more or less one episode. They really basically show up. They establish that they're part of the X-Men universe. They have a cool episode, and then we never see them again. And this happens quite a few times. But hey, at least we got to see so many characters. And clearly, not just homages, but them. Speaking of homages, then we get this other category of guest stars. The, what shall we say, the humorous, the fan, let's get it quickly in there, and the maybe we don't quite have all of the rights to the characters we're showing. And a lot of this came from the showrunners wanting to, really push the limits. So when the Avengers show up in a cameo, you can make out Black Widow, Giant Man, Captain America is a little bit off at this point. So there was a lot of push from the showrunners to get more characters in there. Obviously, there were some guest stars that everyone knew. Obviously, Carol Danvers and Captain America, when he did appear in the final season, were obviously approved guest stars. A lot of the cameos that they, shall we say, snuck in by calling them things like, mutant gun toting, or Spider-Man was called Web Mutant in the script. So, yeah, it was their way of kind of getting a little bit more in there, and sometimes the producers maybe didn't realize that they were approving scenes with characters that maybe they didn't have full rights to. Now, that's one whole category of why we got to see so many exciting background characters, but it's important to establish that because it's why we, as fans, started looking at all the scenes. I mean, yes, some of the background characters were there just to sell toys, but the fact that we could recognize characters in the background became a big part of the show experience. And I remember spending, rewinding the tapes over and over again, trying to say, like, oh my gosh, who else did they, get into that shot? That's Farrell, that's, Sunfire. And the one shot that brings this all together is the opening credits. Because not only do they have a giant group shot of all of the heroes facing off against all of the villains, but in that villain lineup, there's background characters dropped in that aren't really villains. And specifically the first one being Warpath, who's a hero in X-Force, and the second one being the guy next to him, between him and Pyro, the guy in the green suit with the pinkish head. So the reason I'm doing this video is to expand on this, because this has been a thing going on for years of people trying to figure out who these characters are in this background shot. And most have concluded it's Yuri Topolsky, who is also known as the Gremlin. He's this character going all the way back to the Silver Age of Marvel, basically a bald character who wears a green one-piece scientist outfit, shall we say. It's kind of like, I think he borrowed it from the Red Skull. So, yeah, he does eventually kind of get an oversized head, and he's known as the Gremlin, but he's a Hulk villain. He's not at all related to the X-Men. I don't even think they ever fight this character. And while, yes, obviously those sort of, mock Avengers were thrown in, later on, for the opening credits, the idea that it was this guy, I mean, he shows up in the animated universe and drawn very different. He's not wearing the green leotard, probably to make him distinguished from Hulk and She-Hulk on screen, but clearly, not drawn the same way as he was in, or as the character in the opening credits. Pink head, green suit, red boots, and now this is where it gets interesting. So when I was talking about how I would always rewind my videotapes to see who was in the background, that really started with Slave Island. I think episode 7, season 1, maybe episode 6. I think episode 7. This was the first episode to really have prominent background characters, some that even got speaking roles. It was involved being the main characters were captured on Genosha and were in a forced slave labor camp. Now, this episode is also the first appearance of Cable in the series, so obviously it gets major props for that, and it's an awesome Sentinel episode, which, while overplayed in the first season, you kind of start to miss them by halfway through the third season. Like, where are the Sentinels? So yeah, this was the first episode that I really would pause and be like, oh, that's Avalanche, that's Warpath, that's Gambit. Oh wait, I know who Gambit is. But that's Richter, that's Domino. It's like, whoa, these are like new characters just showing up in the comics and to already be on screen. And then in all of the winding and rewinding, there's this guy. I was like, wait, who is that? And the only thing to think of is he looks like that guy from the opening credits. We first see him here. There's distinctly a green guy in the middle there. You can see him between Warpath and I can't tell who's in white, and then that's North Star, I think, in front of him. Obviously, you can see Gambit and Jubilee to the right. So he's throughout the episode. He shows up, help. The Genosians are forcing mutants to build a dam, and he's one of the said mutants using his mutant powers to make the dam. Of course, we all know his mutant powers are the ability to mix concrete perfectly. And, that's why they let them use their mutant powers to build the dam, because, it complements what they're doing. All right, so they finally get released at the end. They lose their slave collars, and everyone's happy. And there's a really nice shot of giant, oversized, pink-headed, green jumpsuit dude. Yeah, not the Gremlin, not that Hulk villain. I mean, clearly his ability to pour concrete at exactly the right mixture and level is very different from the character of the Gremlin. All right, so this mystery, for credit where it's due, CBR.com did a few articles on the X-Men animated series over the years, and they point out, as Larry Houston, who's also one of the lead designers, noted that this was just a mistake. The green guy, he was done very early on in the credits, or very early on in the process. The credits were designed, and not all of the character designs were done. And Eric, Lewald, and Julia have actually mentioned this as well in their book, which is fantastic. You should pick it up on Amazon. It's well worth the read if you're a fan of the show. And yeah, they talk about it as well, that this green jumpsuit guy he was just thrown in there for sort of the temp animation to have the right number of characters. He and Warpath were supposed to be replaced. Acom Productions, which if you grew up in the 80s or 90s, you definitely saw animated series that they produced, everything from classic My Little Pony and Transformers all the way through The Simpsons and Batman the Animated Series and the Animaniacs. And if you saw a cartoon, you saw their work, and errors did show up. They were kind of notorious sometimes for doing things like flipping logos. That was one of their big ones, especially in the Batman the Animated Series. And when they did X-Men, because of the rush in the production schedule of season 1, there were a lot of mistakes that had to go back and get redone before they could air. And because of the huge number of these, it resulted in some of the other notorious issues that arose over X-Men the Animated Series. Again, full credit, CBR.com does a really funny list of these, but a big one is that so many episodes aired in the wrong order or were unfinished. That when the Juggernaut shows up and destroys the mansion at the end of between 4 and 5, that scene wasn't ready. And the opening credits, not only do we never see this promised battle between all of Magneto's evil Brotherhood and Xavier's X-Men, which I'm hoping we'll see in X-Men 97. But this features the biggest mistake of them all, which was this temp character who was thrown in, and Warpath was also a temp character. They were both supposed to be replaced. And because his design was available and they needed to fill space in the background, it got used in Slave Island. It or he. I'm assuming it's a he. So yeah, it's a mistake that was left over in the credits that then, just to fill space, got used up in the first sort of crowd episode, Slave Island. But because of the prominence in the opening credits, this character has become an infamous part of X-Men the Animated Series. So that's why I still hold out hope that maybe in the new reboot or the 97 sequel, maybe we'll get a whole episode dedicated to this character. But that's his story. That's all the facts. Hope you enjoyed this second look back and a bit longer version, more detailed of the tale. Let me know what other video topics you'd love to see. They're always welcome on the comment section, and thanks for watching and sharing. It's the best way to support this channel.